So our adventure actually begins at a house that has nothing to do with the rest of the story. And that house is up this street, around the corner, up some winding roads, about maybe a half a mile or so. And the house, at least the part that we want to see, still looks the same. And we're gonna go check it out right now. Let's do it. The movie begins with Stacy Peralta sitting in his living room, coincidentally eating some Chinese food while watching a news program about skateboarding. This house right here on the corner, this was Stacy Peralta's house at the time. That balcony is the very same one that we see him come out to in the beginning of Public Domain. But what we want to see today is around the corner on the side of the house. Because of course, Stacy gets so fed up with that news program that he throws his TV out the window and into the driveway. And if we come around the corner to the side of the house, you can find that very same window that he throws his TV out of. Not too much has changed here. The house is painted a different color. However, the layout of the windows is still the same. And actually, when the TV hits the driveway, you can see a door and a window on the first floor. You can see that door and window right there. Now, to get the exact shot from the movie, I would have to go stand in the driveway. And of course, we're not going to do that. But you can still get the basic idea from out here in the street. Well, I can't believe that that window and the driveway still look the same, but like I said, that is just the beginning of our adventure. We have got a lot more to see. So, let's go see what we can find. All right, so the first scene is at Wallows. Wallows is in Hawaii. I don't have time to go to Hawaii. Who am I gonna get to go to Hawaii for me? There's gotta be someone that I could convince. I got it.
Method, air, and 1 foot, air, and shooter, air,
Hello?
Hey Rich, it's Kurt.
Hey, what's up?
You gonna skate this weekend?
Oh, I can't. I got family stuff.
Oh. You should go to Wallows.
Dude, I should go to Wallows.
Perfect. That's a great idea. Bring me back a t-shirt.
Later.
Hey.
Yeah,
Shoot some video for me while you're there.
you got it.
Wallows is a legendary local skate spot located in Hawaii on the island of Oahu. It's basically just a big drainage ditch, and the terrain gets rougher and rougher every year. But if you're brave enough to skate it, it's still there. Now luckily, it didn't take a lot of convincing to get Rich to jump on a plane and fly out to Hawaii and shoot some footage for me. Now when the Bones Brigade first went there back in 1987, this is what it looked like. Now, this is what it looks like in 2025. All of the shrubberies around it are very overgrown. Like I said, the terrain is a lot more rough, but it's still there. So I've got to give a very huge thank you to Rich for going to Hawaii and shooting this footage for me. If you're not already following him on social media, you can find him on Instagram and on YouTube under the name Thrift Store Paintings, where he makes really awesome and funny skateboarding content. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. So after they get done at Wallows, they're sitting around trying to figure out where to go next when Tommy suggests that they go to his hometown, San Francisco. Maps to the skaters' homes. Maps to the skaters' homes. Right here is where Orb was sitting, selling maps to the skaters' homes when the Bones Brigade arrives. He then ends up giving them the inflatable globe, which is the map to all of the skaters' homes, and then sends them on their way into Chinatown. Now, there were a few Chinatown scenes that we weren't able to find in San Francisco, and that's because for a few of those shots, they came back here to Los Angeles and they used LA Chinatown. After they skate away from Orb, the first shot we get is of the Chinatown sign, which is in Los Angeles. It's usually right here, but of course when I came today, it was taken down for refurbishment. And I'm about 90% sure that this is where those Have You Seen Him posters were hanging. The windows have been changed, but if you notice the reflection in the window on the left, you can see a traffic signal and the top of a pointy building, just like what you see in the reflection of the window in the movie. Also notice that green tile at the bottom of the screen? Very similar to what we see here, but if you come around to the side of the building where it hasn't been remodeled yet, you'll find green tile that matches with the tile that we see in the movie. So the green tile mixed with what we see in the reflection of the window, I am almost positive that this is the right building. Also, if you take a step back and look at the front of the entire building, you can see cracks in the plaster from the windows being replaced. And right across the street from this building is the spot where Lance and Steve are talking to a couple of other guys. And this is also the same spot where that Chinatown sign is usually hung up. So it's all in the same area. This bridge right behind me is known by local skaters as the China Banks, and it's one of the first spots that the Bones Brigade goes to when they get here to Chinatown. This has been a legendary skate spot for more than 30 years, and the bad news is that it's going to be torn down any day. Actually, by the time you see this video, the odds are this will no longer exist. That footage was actually taken a couple of years ago, and at the time, they were saying the China Banks could be torn down any day. But on my recent trip to San Francisco, I found that the China Banks are still there. But supposedly, the city of San Francisco and the Hilton Hotel are very close to reaching an agreement about who is financially responsible for the demolition, and once they reach that agreement, the bridge will then be demolished. So if you find yourself near San Francisco, make sure you stop by and check out this legendary spot while you still can. We see the boys come skating down an alley, and they then stop and ask a barber if he's seen Chin. They pass right by this pipe on the wall. They then pass by a staircase that's behind that door marked 30, and right here is where the barber was cutting the man's hair. So as the Bones Brigade is leaving Chinatown, it cuts to a shot of Animal Chin's shadow casted on a wall somewhere in San Francisco. But it wasn't really in San Francisco, it was right here in Venice Beach, California. And obviously it wasn't really Animal Chin, it was Craig Stesick dressed up as Animal Chin. And that wall is this one right here behind me. This is the Richmond playground, and this is where they bring the ramp to do those wall rides. And I'm really excited about this location. The wall that they use is right over there in the playground. Let's go check it out. So this is actually footage that I got last year, but during my recent visit to San Francisco, I went back to Richmond Playground and I was saddened to find that they remodeled that front area. They added a black fence and a staircase and changed the style of ramp. So I'm really sad to see that they changed it, but I'm glad that I at least got it the last time that I was there. This is it. How cool is this? I know it's just a wall, but to me, so awesome. So after they leave the Richmond Playground, they bring the ramp here to the Palace of Fine Arts. But before they take the ramp inside of the Palace of Fine Arts, they're right out here in the street. This is where they're doing all of those street plants, and it looks a little bit different. They remodeled this whole area. There used to be a chain right here, but all of these houses over here, there's a lot of stuff on these houses that you can still match up. Right about here is where they had that ramp. And if you come over here, it's funny, right about where that ramp was, you can see on the ground, it's all chipped away now, but you can see where it used to say, no skating. Right over here was their starting point, and also the same area where they were doing the street plants. They would have come down this path and around the corner, and like I said, right by the no skating is where they had the launch ramp. Now what I really want to know is where this guy is. What happened to the footage that he shot on that day? Someone has got to track this guy down. So after their skate session, they come here to the Golden Gate Market and Deli, and they're sitting underneath that window on the right side, leaning up against that brick wall. And the reason why they come here is to get a carton of milk. And I know whenever I'm really hot and thirsty, the only thing I want is some nice, thick milk. And so anyways, they're sitting right here enjoying it when all of a sudden they notice that on the side of the carton is animal chin. And they start to freak out and they decide that they're going to go to the city where the ad was placed. And it's Bakersfield. And they're able to figure that out by the area code.
Where's this at, dude? What's the number? 800?
Bakersfield. 800 is Bakersfield. You know.
So I guess all of those infomercials that I saw in the middle of the night, all of those were out of Bakersfield too.
Call toll-free 1-800-835.
Who knew? So I was noticing that in this shot, Mike's shoulder is right in between two pinkish colored stones on the wall. And I just think that it's really awesome that that wall hasn't changed in almost 40 years. So steep. This is so much steeper than it looks in the video. I was gonna try it, but no. Now, unfortunately, all the stuff they're skating is no longer here. Luckily, those buildings across the street are still there, and those can still be matched up, but all of this stuff is long gone. But again, those buildings across the street, those still look the same. So the boys finally arrive in Bakersfield, and we see them supposedly skating into Chris's neighborhood. We see them come around the corner, and you can see an office building behind them, and they then keep passing by the same house over and over again, doing different funny poses. You'll notice that all of those houses they're passing by look a lot different from the houses when they actually get into Chris's neighborhood. And I'm a little embarrassed to tell you how much time I spent trying to figure out where that first neighborhood was. I mean, we really put some time into it and we couldn't figure it out, and it was driving me crazy. I mean, we knew it wasn't Bakersfield because we searched all of the residential neighborhoods in Bakersfield and none of them were it. I reached out to Lance Mountain. He was adamant that it was Bakersfield. I then reached out to Mike McGill. He couldn't really remember, but he also thought that it was in Bakersfield. One last try, I reached out to my buddy Jimmy, also known as World's Best Dad on Instagram. And so I reached out to this guy, who then reached out to this guy, and he reached out to this guy. And believe it or not, Stacy responded within a couple of minutes and told us the cross streets of that neighborhood. I instantly jumped onto Google Maps, and guess what? Not Bakersfield, but right here in West LA. Unbelievable. Now we go to Bakersfield. So they arrive in Bakersfield and they're trying to find Chris's house, and they come to a stop right here in this cul-de-sac, pretty much right here in this very spot. And they're standing here looking around trying to figure out where Chris's house is. And you can see all of these houses, and they're standing here looking at that inflatable globe, and Tony ends up getting on Mike's shoulders, and he looks over here in this direction and he sees the top of Chris's ramp, and he sees them skating. He actually sees himself skating. Fun little fact, don't know if you all knew that. And so it turns out that Chris's ramp is right on the other side of these houses, and that's where we're gonna go now. Come on. So they all come around the corner, and you can see this house behind them. They skate down the sidewalk, and there's a launch ramp waiting for them. Each of the guys goes off the launch ramp, and they all land in Chris's driveway. This driveway right here. Ray Underhill then pokes his head over the fence and opens the gate for him. Hey guys, I think this might be the very same gate that Ray pokes his head over. And so it was in the backyard of this house in this quiet Bakersfield neighborhood where Chris Borse used to have his ramp and where that session took place. Now, of course, the Borse ramp is long gone, but it was right over here next to the house where one of my favorite scenes took place, featuring the late, great Ray Underhill.
Somebody else lost their board, I didn't even know who it was. Board out it, skid-blank, right on my shoulder.
Skid-blank,
So I got sunburn and skid-blank shoulder.
And it was right over here beside the ramp where that famous Lance Mountain scene took place.
Lance, you okay?
Yep. Oh yeah, it wasn't even a bad slam, don't worry.
So one of the gags that Stacy came up with on the fly is while the Bones Brigade is on their journey, they keep passing by 7-Elevens. Of course, the gag being that even when you're traveling across country, you'll find a 7-Eleven on every corner. And don't forget, it was at one of the 7-Elevens where Lance and Steve spot the poster for Johnny Rad at the Blue Tile Lounge. Sometimes I'll get to a location and it'll be like a scene from a really big movie, and for whatever reason, the location won't excite me. I'll just show up and be like, all right, let's get the shot, let's move on. And then sometimes I'll get to a location from another movie and it'll be something, you know, really minor from a not as well-known movie, and it'll just blow my mind. And this was one of those moments. I got here to this 7-Eleven. I was just standing here looking up at the sign, looking at the apartment building across the street, and I was picturing the Bones Brigade coming around the corner right here, and I just got really excited. That's all. Now, every once in a while on this journey, the Bones Brigade has to get a little bit of sleep. So they find themselves checking into the Pink Motel. Now, the Pink Motel isn't open to the public, and they don't just allow anyone onto the property to shoot video, but luckily I found myself at the annual Genocide Car Show, and I was able to match up some shots while I was there, and even make a poor attempt at skating the world-famous pool. Now, once they get there, they go to check in, and if we look through the window, you can see that almost nothing has changed inside of the office. It still has that counter and the door behind them and the wood paneling, but they've also added some 80s artifacts like that Uncle Jesse Full House doll. But of course, that's not what you're here to see. You're here for the pool.
Style, Tony, do that ollie, dude, at Del Mar, that one over the fence. It's sick.
That quick scene of Tony doing the ollie over the fence at Del Mar, that was at the Del Mar Skate Ranch, formerly right here in this location. Once the boys fall asleep, each of them have their own nightmares about bails that they've had. Some at the Pink Motel pool, some at Wallows, some at the Chin Ramp, which hasn't even happened yet, some behind the scenes bails from Police Academy 4, and then whatever the hell this is. And here it is, room number 7 at the Pink Motel, the room that the boys supposedly spend the night in, and where we see them doing their morning exercises, getting ready for a long day of skating. During that scene, you can see Tommy Guerrero pretending to be asleep. He said that he just thought it was really stupid, and it's the one thing he refused to do. Now, they did use this for the exteriors of their room, but I can't guarantee that they filmed inside of room 7 for the interiors. Now, once they finish with their morning exercises, Monty takes them to the junkyard behind the Pink Motel to pick out a car to help them get to Vegas. And believe it or not, that junkyard is still behind the Pink Motel, and it's still full of old cars. I'm almost positive that at least a few of these were here when they were filming Animal Chin. Now, the section that I'm currently standing in is not the same area from the movie. That section is on the other side of this gate, on the far side of the yard. But unfortunately, we can't get to that area. So basically, right here is where they filmed that scene. And as you can see, this section is also still full of old cars. Now, even though we can't get in there, luckily there's still some things that we can match up, like those electrical towers behind Tony and Tommy. This shed right here is the back side of that shed, and then this building on the other side of the shed is this one.
Hey, would you guys hurry up, man? We're gonna miss Johnny Rad's gig. You guys are gelling.
Sorry about that, Tony. Anyways, the boys get in their new car and they say goodbye to the Pink Motel. Monty stands out front watching them pull onto San Fernando Road, and then they're suddenly in the desert. Now, I didn't think there's any way I'd be able to find these rocks, but I did. They're in the middle of the Mojave Desert. This is the Red Cliffs Nature Trail, and it's about 2.5 hours away from Los Angeles. And it was definitely worth the drive to film the rocks for 30 seconds. I guess. Trying to figure out all of the desert locations when they're on their way to Vegas was almost impossible because, well, they're in the middle of the desert and there's not a lot of landmarks that you can go by. But I was able to figure out a couple of spots. Some of them were from deleted scenes and behind the scenes photos. For instance, there was one photo that was taken right here where you see the Cadillac on a trailer, and behind them you can see that sign for the 14 freeway south going to Los Angeles. And then you can also see that sign for the 14 going to Palmdale. You can also see that mountain and that utility pole. There's also some unused footage shot at and around Vasquez Rocks, like one strange scene where they're sitting in the Cadillac. It would have been sitting right about here. These gates weren't here at the time, and Lance stands up and sticks his butt in the camera and farts. The car then edges forward, and you can see the sign for Vasquez Rocks. Now, this is not the same sign that you see in that footage. The sign has been updated. They then make a right turn onto this road, and they pass by a house that has a red tile roof. And fun fact, that's the very same spot where Chrissy is hitchhiking in the movie Thrashin'. We then get a very quick shot of the Bones Brigade driving down Fremont Street. Now, this is actually the shot that you get in the video, but it looks a lot different because Fremont Street has changed a lot since the 80s. You can no longer drive down Fremont Street, you can only walk down it, and it's now covered. It has this awning where they do projections and light shows and stuff like that, and you can no longer see down Fremont Street because there's a large stage right here where bands and DJs perform. And although Fremont Street has changed a lot of the same signs that you see behind the Bones Brigade are still there. And the Bones Brigade came all the way to Las Vegas just for that 2-second shot of them driving down Fremont Street, because the Blue Tile Lounge is actually in Los Angeles. So it's time for us to head back there right now. So we're about to head to the next location, but before we do, I gotta tell you, this was one of the hardest locations to track down. I spent a lot of time reading articles, watching DVD commentaries. I reached out to Lance Mountain to try and get him to remember, but he couldn't. But Steve Caballero said to me, you know, the only person that's probably gonna remember is Stesic. And I was like, okay, but am I going to get a straight answer out of him?
If I were someplace else, I might be there too.
And he said, no, but it's probably your only hope. I found out that there was going to be an art show in LA with Stacy Peralta and Craig Stesic. Now, something happened and I wasn't able to go to the art show, but it turned out that Larry and Matt from the Bones Brigade audio show, they also were trying to find this location, and they had the exact same plan that I had. Now, it turns out that Stacy Peralta wasn't there, but they did talk to Craig Stesic, and he gave them a bunch of clues. I think he actually gave them the cross streets, and with that information, they were able to track it down. And luckily for me, they were nice enough to share it with me so that I can share it with all of you. Now, once they gave me the address and I looked at it on Google Maps, I can tell you I would have never been able to find this no one would have been able to find this. As far as I know, no one has been in there you know, for this purpose, to view it as the Blue Tile Lounge since the movie was made. All right, so we're just beyond the intersection of Pico and Sepulveda. Here you've got a little storefront, and here's their driveway. You've got a gate, and if you go just beyond this gate, there's more buildings and a little covered patio, and that is where the Blue Tile Lounge was. Come on, let's check it out. And so this is why I say that no one would have ever found this without knowing, because it's set pretty far off the street. You got to come through that gate, and then right back here, this was the Blue Tile Lounge. Now, it might not look like it to you yet, but we're gonna get in there and we're gonna match up all these shots. Now, like I said, we're gonna really match things up, but just to give you an idea, this is where they come skating in. Now, this is one of the few things that has changed here. This was the entrance to the Blue Tile Lounge, and they've walled this off. You can see the doorway was set in. So right here, this is where Skip was standing, and this is where that red, like, kind of, looks like it's like an E-shaped door that was right there. Now, in the movie, they make it look like this is the entrance to the Blue Tile Lounge, and that they're then in there, they're standing in there talking. Now, in reality, they're actually inside this section of the building. Now, we can't go in there because there's a tenant there. This is private, so we can't get in there. But they're standing inside of here talking with Johnny Rad, and then he opens the door and he says, "Welcome to the Blue Tile Lounge," and they're just coming back through this door, and this space that I'm currently standing in, this was it. And all this is an outdoor patio, a covered patio. Right over here, this is where the band was playing. Right over here is where they had the jump ramp. This is where they had the ramp up against the wall doing the wall rides. Over in this corner is where they're doing all the tricks. It's actually a very small space. This is it. You can still recognize, you can still match stuff up because of these windows right here and because of these sliding doors. Now, all of the graffiti that would have been here, that's all long gone. This wooden structure right here, this was added years later. So this was not here. You can see back here where it's still got the original white, but we kind of, we tried really hard to look for any remnants of the graffiti that was back here, and we couldn't find anything. However, there is one thing, and Larry actually found this, and he found it through the guy who runs this place sent him a couple of pictures, and Larry spotted this. The one remnant that we can find from them filming here, check this out, see if you can see this. Tiny little Thrasher sticker. I cannot believe that I'm standing in the Blue Tile Lounge right now. And it's funny because the entrance to the Blue Tile Lounge, this is now just a bathroom. And you know, when the guy opened it for me, he was like, "Oh, let me, you know, I'll let you stand here for a minute and kind of take it all in," because he could see how excited I was. And it's a bathroom, but you know, to me, it's something special. Now, this same building that was used for the Blue Tile Lounge, this is also where they had the premiere party for Future Primitive. And if you watch that footage, there's a shot of a spray painted car parked out front in front of a meter, and across the street you can see a carpet store. Now, right here is where that car was parked, and if you look across the street, there it is, Barry Carpet. It's still here. It's now walled off and they're getting ready to tear the building down, but luckily we got here in time.
Man, let us know. We've been waiting.
Man.
Come on, we've been here for hours.
You don't let us hang.
You said you were gonna kick down the info, now kick down, man.
We had a good
Worst.
time. Tired. I want to go. Come on.
Dude, let's just go.
All
Let's
right,
go.
all right, all right. Bro.
Jones Brigade. Get down a little bit.
So after he gives them the 411 on the ramp between the two junkyards, Johnny Rad stands right here in the doorway of the Blue Tile Lounge saying goodbye. I still can't believe that we found this place. Well, that Matt and Larry found it, and again, they were nice enough to share it with me. Endless thanks to you guys for sharing it with me, and when you're back in California, we'll go enjoy it together. I also can't believe that I got to take my time walking around by myself and just enjoying the Blue Tile Lounge. A huge thank you goes out to Ron, who runs the property, for letting me come in and match up shots. It was a dream come true. Now, I do have to let all of you know that unfortunately, the property is not open to the public. I still can't believe it. The Blue Tile Lounge. All right, on to the chin ramp. So the boys are traveling through the desert trying to find this giant ramp that Johnny Rad told them about, when all of a sudden they spot a huge skateboard on the hillside, and they run up to it and they see Guadalupe etched into it, which tells them that they're in the right place. Now, nobody seems to know where that scene was filmed because they were just traveling through the desert, either going to or coming back from Vegas, and they had the big skateboard with them, and at some point Stacy was like, hey, this looks like a good spot, let's get out and film that scene. But we do know where the giant skateboard is. It's actually inside one of these buildings right here behind me at the Skateboarding Hall of Fame and Museum. Here it is. I got a little worried because they changed things since the last time I was here. They put up these walls. I thought maybe they got rid of it. The real Search for Animal Chin skateboard. How amazing is this? Now, this was just built out of chicken wire and foam, and some of the foam has started to rot away, and so you can see the chicken wire poking through, and that whole top layer is gone. So unfortunately, Guadalupe and any other writing that was on it, that is no longer there. But this is the real skateboard here on display for anyone to come and check out, and it's free. It's free to come into the museum and check things out, but you can make a donation, or if you'd like to skate, they have a little mini skate park, and you can do that for a small fee as well. Now, after they made the movie, for many years, this was just sitting inside of the PAL headquarters, and one day, Todd, the guy who runs the Skateboarding Hall of Fame, was at PAL, and they said to him, hey, would you like this? Would you like to take this for the museum? And he was like, well, let me see if it'll fit in my car. Lucky for us, it did fit inside of his car, and it's now here on display for all of us to enjoy. So right over here is where the ramp would have been, and we're gonna go check that out in a second. But if you head up this street, Bennett Hill Road, up here is where you get some of those shots overlooking the ramp, and also the hill that they're skating down when they're on their way to the ramp. So let's go check it out. So I'm pretty sure that this is one of the overlooks where they first see the ramp, which would have been right out here. And if you notice, if you look all the way over there at the bottom of the hill, there's a junkyard. And then if you look right down here, there's another junkyard.
It's in this field between two junkyards.
There's one scene where they're coming down the hill on their way to the ramp, and if you look really carefully in that scene, behind them on the hill, you can see a sculpture. It looks like some kind of a cross. And if you look right up there, is that very same sculpture. This is the hill that they're coming down when they're on their way to the ramp. so awesome. This is it. This is the spot where the animal chin ramp was. Now, I know for most people passing through here, you can see we're on a bike path and there's people passing through this area all day, every day. And for the majority of people that pass through here, most of them don't even know that that took place. But if you were a skater that grew up in that time and you know what happened here, to picture that ramp right here and to picture the Bones Brigade flying through the air, it's unbelievable. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can tell that this is the right spot. First of all, you can match up parts of the mountains, but also in the movie they mentioned that the ramp is in between two junkyards just south of a town called Guadalupe. Now it's not really south of a town called Guadalupe, but it is really in between two junkyards. Now again, because of the two junkyards, we know that it was in this general area, but I'm trying to figure out where it was, like where it was centered. I would say that it was roughly right where we're standing. This bike path wouldn't have been here at the time, and I think the ramp was right about here. Now, I could be wrong. It might have been 100 feet that way or 100 feet that way, but I would say it was roughly right where we're standing. Anyone who grew up during that time, if you love that movie and you haven't been out here, I highly recommend coming out here because it's very peaceful. And like I said, you can just stand here and you can picture what took place. And it's amazing. That's all I can say. I have a tendency now that I do this channel that when I come to these filming locations now, I kind of take it for granted. I'm just trying to get the shots and I'm not really taking it all in. But if I stop and I really think about what happened here, you know, think about them out here for days and weeks building that ramp. When I think about that, it was somewhere right here where Tommy Guerrero said, "Apples, apple." It also would have been somewhere right here on the ground where they had the little campfire after the ramp. That's how the movie ends, with them sitting around the campfire talking about if they really found Chin. That was somewhere right here. I mean, look, it could have been this spot right here. Who knows? That could have been the very spot where they made that little campfire. Thank you, Stacy Peralta. Thank you, Craig Stesick. Thank you, Tommy Guerrero, Tony Hawk, Mike McGill, Steve Caballero, Lance Mountain. Thank you all for making that movie and for making our childhood just a little bit more awesome. Now, technically, the movie ends at the Chin ramp, but if you watch all the way through the closing credits, after the credits, there's another scene where Stacy takes his TV to a TV repair shop. Because if you remember, in the beginning of the movie, he throws his TV out the window. Now, in the closing credits, they thank Ernie's TV Repair, which used to be located right over here on the corner. And this is just a couple of miles from Stacy's old house, which is where the movie begins. So I'm about 90% sure that this is where they filmed that scene. And I have to give a shout out to Larry from the Bones Brigade audio show for pointing this out to me. And it looks like that's gonna bring us to the end of this video. Even though we didn't find Chin, I still had a blast looking for him. So don't forget to never stop searching. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Tail drop, how high?
4 feet.
4 feet?
7 feet.
7 feet?
No more than 10. It's 10 feet.
10-foot tail drop. Okay, what kind of transition?
9 foot.
Lost my board, biffed my shins. Trashed them.
You're hurting, dude.
I twanked my knee. Both knees are twanked. Wrist is danked. Twanked and danked. Shoulder is begeeged.
Tweak backwards, huh?
All the way around.